Hello, everyone, and welcome to No Offseason. I'm Zena.
I'm Sabreena Merchant.
And I'm Ben Pickman.
And today on the show, be prepared to be stressed because that's how I feel right now. It is our award predictions as the 2025 WNBA regular season nears its end. I cannot believe it is literally the last week of the regular season. That means that the race for the league's top awards has intensified. And the questions are, will this be a year of repeats? What makes for a good defensive player of the year? Which player has most improved? Then Valkyries guard Veronica Burton is going to join me to discuss her surprise success story in their inaugural season of the Valkyries and the evolution of her game. But first, Sabreena scale. It's back, y'all. It's here. We're here. Playoff standings are taking shape, Sabreena. And I want us to take a look at this week's Sabreena scale. And we've got to have like a do-no-no kind of sound because it's the last one of the year, Sabreena. I was really sad to read that. So there wasn't a ton of movement in your final rankings this week. But tell us what stood out for you this weekend.
I think the main thing that stood out was, we've been talking for weeks about, do the Liberty have the ability to flip the switch, right? This is a team that won the title last year, is super talented on paper, right? Even though they lost Benijah Laney-Hamilton for the season, they bring in Natasha Cloud, bring in Emma Meeseman midseason, still have Stewie, Jonquil Jones, Sab. When is this actually going to look like a team that could win the title? And we've just been waiting for a good month or so now.
Yeah.
And the quotes coming out of the Liberty locker room are just increasingly this is not what we're supposed to look like. This is frustrating. This is disappointing. And so to see them, sort of go through the motions of what looked like another road loss in Seattle, it would have been their 6th consecutive road loss, to turn that around, actually show some fire, show some life. Admittedly, taking away a fourth quarter lead from the Seattle Storm is not that difficult to do these days. But,
yeah, that's their thing. They like to do that.
It's their thing, yeah. 8 losses when leading going into the fourth quarter, the most by a large margin in the WNBA.
Crazy.
But yeah, just to see them show some fight and actually show the bones of a team that can compete in the playoffs, I thought was the most interesting thing. Not necessarily enough to raise them that high in the Sabreena scale this week, but just something to keep an eye on as we go ahead into the playoffs, because again, this is a team that is just uber talented.
If there is anything that anyone learned from that game, closed mouths don't get fed. Shout out to Sandy Brondello and these challenges at the end of that game, because there were some calls that I was like, oh, no way. Sandy, sweetie, what are you doing?
Right,
You're not going to get that one. You're not going to get that one. Whoo, there were some, mouth dropped. I was like, and then Noelle Quinn, closed mouths don't get fed. There was a play in which, very towards the end of the game, Nneka going in, Stewie fouls her. She doesn't review it. And I'm like, and then the montage of all the Sandy Brondello challenges happens. And it was just like, well, thank you for keeping it interesting. But yeah, shout out to the New York Liberty being able to get that win on the road. I loved the post-game interview when I don't remember who the person was with Breanna Stewart, but saying, how does it feel to break this 5-game losing streak? And Breanna Stewart's like, I didn't know.
I had no idea.
We were on a 5-game losing streak. It's like, all right, well, that might be part of the issue. But I did appreciate the fact that they looked like they had some fight in them. But the other team that has completely changed. Their whole trajectory has gotten up after a brutal beatdown towards the midsummer. Aces, the Las Vegas Aces, 14 wins straight now, Ben. 14, okay? And we're talking about the fact that it's A'ja Wilson making them look great, but there's other players that are stepping up. Ben, I'm going to let you get into a little bit of what you're liking out of the Aces, because I know, Sabreena, you talked a little bit about Jackie Young, but Ben, what are you seeing?
I mean, how do you not start with A'ja Wilson here? And I know we're going to talk a lot about A'ja Wilson on this podcast, but she's basically putting up these 30-10 games and making them seem kind of normal at this point. I was talking to someone around the league on Monday, and they basically told me that they've never seen a player have the kind of dominance over the course of a month and a half like A'ja Wilson has had. And we have basically seen it since the 50-point blowout, the 50-plus point blowout that the Aces lost to the Minnesota Lynx. I think it was August 2nd was that day. And since then, they've just rattled off 14 straight and shot up the standings from on the cusp of the playoffs to like, they're not gonna be the title favorite. They're not gonna be the 1 seed because of Minnesota, but like, find a team that is hotter, that is more dangerous than the Las Vegas Aces.
Right.
You couldn't. And I've just gone back all season long. I remember talking to Becky Hammon when they were in New York for the first time, and she was like, yes, we are not playing our best right now, but we want to be peaking when the season is, nearing the postseason, when games are starting to really matter for real. And I don't even think Becky Hammon, though, could have imagined like them peaking the way that they are right now, them playing the way that they are, because historically, like, it would have been tough to imagine, but it's so impressive. And it all starts with, number 22 for them.
Whew, right. I mean, they're defining peaking right now. And I love that Asia Wilson is going to be doing Asia Wilson things. But there's also the growth around her because Kelsey Plum is now gone. There's more ball handling in the hands of a Jackie Young. Sabreena, you called this out, and I thought it was a really great observation. Jackie Young was a point guard. That was her role. And she became someone that was coming off of, driving in from the wing and being able to create off ball because you had a Kelsey Plum. Now you talk about her usage rates going up. What are you noticing with Jackie Young's contributions to this unbelievable streak?
What's interesting about Jackie Young is that she's such a perfectionist that the Aces have always gotten on her case about like not doing enough because she's trying not to make mistakes. Like during that peak 2023 run where they won, 34 out of 40 games, it was always like, well, Jackie never turns the ball over, but it also means that she kind of doesn't try all of the passes that we know she's capable of. And now you're just seeing a more emboldened Jackie Young where she's trying everything. And like, there's been a number of times where she'll make a pass and the Aces broadcast thinks like, oh, that's Chelsea Gray. And it's not, but it just looks like a Chelsea Gray pass. It's just Jackie Young, right? And we've talked about this on the podcast before, actually.
Right.
But I think that's just more of an indication of, she's a little bit freer. She's not as afraid of making mistakes. And she still doesn't really make that many mistakes, right? Like 10 of the last 12 games, 2 or fewer turnovers. In that same stretch, 5 or more assists 10 times, right? So she's obviously handling a lot of playmaking load alongside Chelsea Gray. Because again, like you mentioned, there's just a different role for her. Jewel Lloyd is not going to be that type of player that Kelsey Plum was. So I think it's cool that she's just gotten more comfortable with, the ability to be potentially a little less disciplined, even though that is very much within the Jackie Young ethos, is to like make as few mistakes as possible. And it's another one of the reasons why we've seen the Aces go on this remarkable streak. They're the 5th team in WNBA history to win 14 games in a row. Their next game is against the Chicago Sky, who I think it's going to be 15 in a row, let's be clear. So, it's a really impressive streak to end the year on.
For sure, especially the way the Sky right now are trending. Definitely looks good for the Aces to continue this. Now, you talk about the streak, but the streak has also, positioned them incredibly well in that number 2 spot. The standings have been shaking, not necessarily towards the top. I think Vegas has been working their way towards that number 2. Atlanta's been comfortably in that number 3. It's the bottom. It's the bottom of the playoff standings specifically that have been interesting. So the Golden State Valkyries clinch after Dallas tried very hard to play spoiler last week. They clinch their playoff spot. They haven't figured out exactly where they are in the standings just yet, but they're going to go in and have their opportunity to potentially play spoiler against Seattle on Tuesday. So what are you seeing in these playoff standings? Seattle, Los Angeles, battling back and forth. Guys, I chose Dallas and Los Angeles as my game to watch. And I will say, quarter 1 through 3, it was worth it. Quarter 4 was interesting. But, I mean, Los Angeles continuously has these, like, unbelievable kind of worrisome games. If you're a Los Angeles Sparks fan, it keeps things exciting, but it's like, man, you want them to have some consistency so they can find a way to get into the playoffs. What are you looking at with the playoff standings, Sabreena?
Well, I mean, there's very little at stake here because there's only one team, the Sparks, who can potentially get in the playoffs, and it requires everything to go in their favor. They need to win their next 2 games against Phoenix and Las Vegas, who would be potentially going for their 16th win in a row, while Seattle also needs to lose to Golden State. So even though not everything is set, if I were a betting person, which I am not, I think Seattle is the odds-on favorite to be the 8th seed, which would put, Indiana in 7, Golden State in 6. New York is probably going to be 5. There's a little bit of drama maybe at the 2 seed where Vegas and Atlanta are still tied. Vegas does have the tiebreaker, though, and, they have 2 games against Chicago and LA. Atlanta has 2 games against Connecticut. You would imagine they would be favored in all of those, so Vegas is still the odds-on favorite to, be the 2 seed and have home court in a potential WNBA semifinals. But yeah, everything is kind of settling into place. Like there are things that could potentially move. Really, the only thing to keep an eye on is if the Sparks can win Tuesday and Golden State can win Tuesday, then that gives a little intrigue on Thursday. But like, can you imagine trying to clinch a playoff spot against a Las Vegas Aces team going for their 16th win in a row? Because I cannot.
I could not.
That exactly is like why this path is so hard for the Sparks, is because the two teams, as you said, Sabreena, that they have to play have a lot at stake still. Yes, they are in the playoffs, but there is definitely real seeding implications for Phoenix and Las Vegas. And so, yeah, I think we kind of know the 8 at this point. I don't want to poo-poo your LA Sparks, but I think it might be a little bit too little too late.
Yeah, if anything, Phoenix losing to Connecticut helped LA a little bit because they have a much harder path to 2 or 3 now and could be a little more inclined to rest on Tuesday. But again, the A's is on Thursday. That's going to be a real issue.
Before we close this out, is there any movement you expect with who has home court advantage? Because of the 4 and 5s, do you see any potential movements happening there?
I don't really think that New York is going to catch Phoenix for 4-5, and I don't think we're going to see much passing on the 5-6 front either. I think the bigger question is second round home court, right? Does Atlanta or Las Vegas get the 2 or the 3? That very much is still in play, as Sabreena said. So that is, I think, the real series to look out for, to see who would open the second round if it gets to it, between those two teams with home court, and obviously then have the game 5 if the series extends.
Okay. All right. I was trying to prolong before I went into my very stressful phase of talking about these awards. It's not going to be easy this season. When we get back, we're going to dive in. All righty. Well, without further ado, deep breath. Let's get into our predictions. We're going to start with the big one, MVP. Most valuable player. Who do we think is going to win it this year? Sabreena, let's start with you. Who you got, girl?
I mean, who do we think and who am I going to vote for? Very different questions at this point. But yeah, let's just put it out here. You know, I think about MVP. My baseline is usually best player on best team, and it has to be something specifically historic or groundbreaking or something that's going to cause me to change that. And honestly, nothing really has happened to cause me to change that. So as of today, Monday, September 8th, I am going to be voting for Napisa Collier for MVP for 2025.
Okay, so I know, Ben and you wrote an article in which you guys kind of broke all these things down. And I want to kind of ask you about some of the things that matter to you, because everyone utilizes different statistics and different evaluations in this. And one of the things you called out was the fact that Napisa Collier is top 5 in usage rate, as well as being top 5 in true shooting percentage. And I think usage rate is always a great indication of like, wow, this person puts in a lot of work, right? And in order for their team to be successful offensively, their usage, their capacity to, and be a part of the movement of the ball on the floor is incredibly important for that success. But true shooting percentage is also important because it means that as you're being utilized, you're still able to make a lot of shots in different ways. Can you break down why you think it's particularly important for you to be top 5 in usage and top 5 in true shooting?
I just think it means you're super efficient on the court, right? Like as you mentioned, a lot of the offense is running through Napisa Collier, whether that's like as a, play finisher or creator, what have you, because Minnesota has a lot of movement on their offense. And for her to finish as many plays as she does and do so at such an effective rate, like nobody else in WNBA is doing that, right? And I think just to lead on the FI MVP case for a second, I realize that the Aces are second in the WNBA and that the Lynx are first, and it seems like it's not that big of a gap between those two teams. You look at their net ratings, and Minnesota is plus 12.4, and Vegas is plus 2.4, right? Like there is a cliff between these two teams. And for FI to be leading the team that is that much better, I'm not of the belief that, like, oh, she has a better team constructed around her. Like, you look at the Aces, they've got Jewel Lloyd, they've got Chelsea Gray, they've got Jackie Young. This is a team full of Olympians, full of players who have enormous amounts of talent. That the Lynx have been consistently dominant all season, and FI has been at the center of all of that, is incredibly important to me when I'm considering this award.
Okay, well, let's switch over to Ben and see what your MVP pick is. And I got a question for you too, but I have a feeling I know which one you're going to choose.
Yeah, I mean, I currently am leaning A'ja Wilson, who would be the first ever 4-time WNBA MVP if she is named this award come later this fall.
Now, Ben, when it comes to A'ja Wilson, It's so interesting because the argument people make against Nafisa Collier is actually one that A'ja Wilson has had to battle almost her entire career, which is, well, she's got all these people around her, right? She's got this squad around her that's making her better. And it's interesting that now the argument's kind of flipped, as if, A'ja Wilson doesn't still have Olympians and all-stars around her, but it's her individual contribution to the games. 20 double-doubles so far this season is insane. Unbelievable numbers. And as you mentioned, 30 and 10, as if it's a normal thing to provide to a basketball game. How are you making the case for A'ja Wilson, particularly speaking to the people that might be fatigued by voting for A'ja Wilson?
Yeah, one, I think she is the best player in the league, and that is not for nothing, though. I think Nafisa Collier right now is the second best player in the league. I think for A'ja, again, she leads the WNBA in points. She leads the WNBA in blocks. She leads the league in 20-point and 30-point double-double. She's had more, again, dominant performances than any other player in the league. That is what that tells me. She leads the league in win shares. If you look at it, the Las Vegas Aces need A'ja Wilson to thrive more than any other player, and any other team needs their star player to thrive. She has a plus 25.6 on-off net rating. That is the best in the league of any player that plays significant minutes. It is significantly more than what Nafisa Collier's on-off net rating is for the Minnesota Lynx. And we have seen that the Minnesota Lynx, yes, have still played pretty good basketball without Fee on the court, and I have a hard time believing that is the same case for A'ja Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces. So to me, yes, I think this award was locked up at the start of August. When these two teams met, when you have that 50-point game, I think Fee was the clear front runner. But it is hard to overlook the last, 15 or so games and just how great A'ja has been. And she was great before, but she has gone on, a tear and then some. And Minnesota has played solid, and Fee has been, missed some time and then been solid in her return. But it is, again, hard to overlook that dominance that A'ja has had, and we see it both in normal game situations and we see it in clutch game situations. The Aces 13-2 in situations that are classified as clutch games. A'ja has a 41.7 net rating. That means they would outscore opponents by more than 40 points per 100 possessions in that situation. The Lynx, meanwhile, 6-5 in clutch settings, and Collier has a plus 10.5 net rating in those moments. It just shows you how good A'ja is when the game is hanging in the balance.
That's what seems to be the conversation between these two, is one player is the best player on the best team. Now, yes, the Lynx went 7-3 while Nafisa Collier was not in. But as Sabreena says, she is still at the center of their exceedingly better success than any other team in the WNBA right now. But there's also this aspect of the best player on a team, period. As in they're going to need this player in order to be the dominant team that they are, and that's A'ja Wilson. And it's like you can teeter and totter back and forth, etc. But my pick is going to be A'ja Wilson, and it's going to be based on what Ben mentioned in terms of the dominance that the Las Vegas Aces achieve, mainly because A'ja Wilson is available. To me, that's what value lists out as for me when you look at the MVP. However, the voters are going to look at it a lot of different ways. They're going to look at the way Sabrina's looking at it, the way that Ben's looking at it. And then some people might be able to say, like, individual accolades, things that you're just doing, team or not, you're just doing things that no one's ever done. And that makes me think of, obviously, Alyssa Thomas. You guys get the chance, as voters, you guys get the chance to vote top 5 for MVP. Outside of A'ja, outside of Fee, which, let's just be real right now, between a lot of voters, it's interchangeable, 1 or 2, 2 or 1. Who else is on your list? And how does Alyssa Thomas kind of feed into that conversation? Sabreena, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think Alyssa Thomas is a pretty good candidate for number 3 on this ballot. I think I had said that she was going to be second when we had this discussion about a month ago, and obviously things have changed for the Las Vegas Aces, which have vaulted A'ja Wilson ahead of her in that category. But I think it, again, sort of comes down to how much is she contributing to the team being excellent, right? And I look at just the numbers that A'ja has. Ben already mentioned the on-offs and whatnot, and like Alyssa Thomas has done great things in Phoenix, but like not what A'ja has done in Las Vegas. But I think third place is a perfectly valid place to have her, especially coming into a new team, having to restructure their identity completely. Like it's a very tall task for any player. It's a much bigger lift than like Nafisa Collier and A'ja Wilson returning to supporting casts that are very similar to them. But yeah, third place, Alyssa Thomas, makes a lot of sense. Alicia Gray comes in fourth for me right now. Mostly just because I think I've been looking at Bree Jones on Atlanta. I'm like, she's also super valuable, and it's hard for me to distinguish, between those two. I think Gray has been tremendous, the most consistent player throughout the course of the season. So that's why I would have her fourth on my ballot. Fifth is an open question right now. I'm still deciding between a lot of names as we make this all W conversation, but I'm curious where Ben is right now.
I mean, this is where we get my head is spinning. I could see so many different versions and ballots, and I really don't know where to pick because, as you said, Sabreena, it parlays into the all W conversation, and any which way you slice it, there are going to be plenty of players and their respective teams and agencies and camps who are going to be unhappy with how the voting shakes out because you have players like both players on the Indiana Fever, Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, who have really strong cases for, all W first team, all W second team. And if one of them didn't make either of them, I also wouldn't be shocked, right? You have Kayla McBride, who's had an all WNBA quality year. And again, as Sabreena said, on the best team all season long and also had to carry a lot of the weight when Fee was out. You have someone like Sabreena Ionescu from the New York Liberty, though she's also missed some time. You have someone like Brianna Stewart, who has missed more than 10 games this year and probably won't make an all-W team, though if you were ranking the 10 best players in the league, obviously she is on the list. Then you have Jackie Young, you have NECA, you have Paige Beckers, you have Veronica Burton. I could keep throwing Bree Jones. I could keep throwing names in. I think I just rattled off 8 or 9 names, and you basically have 6-ish spots, and 6 spots for, filling out the final all-W 5th player and then your all-W 2nd team. And maybe my long list is not long enough. I don't know if Sabreena or Zena, you have other names you want to toss in, but it just gives you an example of how hard of a decision this is. And it is one that I'm definitely going to spend kind of all week stewing over because I every hour, every 2 hours, whenever I've sat down to, watch games back, to look at some stats, to ask people, I get different answers. And I have no feel for it right now. I hate to be the person who's going to opt out of making a pick here, but I really have no feel after 4 for what, 5 through 10 is going to look like for me, MVP ballot and then all W 2nd team.
No, that's fair. I feel like a little Freudian slip happened, stewing.
Yeah, right?
On some things.
You heard it, Zena.
But luckily we're not choosing all WNBA teams just yet. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how those 5 shake out because we've had some unbelievable caliber performances coming across the country. And ultimately, though, I think we are all pretty safe. It's between Asia and Fee. I'm Asia, Ben's Asia, Sabreena's Fee. We'll see what happens. I remember on July 25th, I posted on Blue Sky and I was like, are we good with the MVP conversation? Do we need to see any more? And then Asia did what Asia does. So we'll see what happens. Let's keep it going. One of these I feel like we're going to roll right through. And I think it's Coach of the Year. I mean, I literally even failed a game with Sabreena the other day trying to convince myself I don't believe who the Coach of the Year is. We know last year, Minnesota Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve, she received this award. She also holds the record for the most WNBA Coach of the Year awards ever, having won in 2011, 2016, 2020. Sabreena, I'm going to start with you. Who is your pick for Coach of the Year?
Yeah, we can roll right through this. It's Natalie Nakase. The level of difficulty for taking an expansion team to be good, let alone making the playoffs, let alone in the mix for home court this late in the season. Obviously, they're not going to get there, but just an incredible job she's done with the Valkyries. Everybody is basically having the best season of their career in Golden State underneath Natalie. They have an identity. You know how they're going to play. They play hard. They built a culture that people want to be a part of, that people are devastated when they get cut, from. So I think just everything that she's been able to establish in Golden State it was the hardest job in the WNBA coming into the season, and she has done a masterful job of it. So yeah, I don't really think there's any conversation here. It's Natalie Nakase.
I'm with that. Ben?
Yeah, I am now a Natalie Nakase voter. I think for a long time, I think Carl Smesko to me it was closer than I think a lot of people gave it credit for. Atlanta has jumped more than any other team in the league. They're more than 13 wins, depending on their result on Monday night, from last year to this year. And we've seen someone like Alicia Gray go from, top 20 player in the league to, as we said, being a lock on an MVP ballot as the third or fourth player, depending on what you want, and she'll make all W first team. And so credit to him and their staff for unlocking her. But yeah, everything Sabreena said applies here. I think this is Natalie Nicase's award, with Golden State having comfortably made the playoffs here.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation when it comes to what makes for a coach of the year, whether it's you do something like what Carl Smesco did, which is turning around a program, or you do something like Sidney Johnson is doing Washington, tapping into the young talent that's available on his roster. You do what Natalie Nicase has done. And I mean, that's a new one, right? That's quite literally a new one since 2008 to take on an expansion team. But I want to ask you guys this question, because this actually happened. I was in a bar after a Valkyries game, met up with some friends, and someone asked me about Natalie Nicase winning Coach of the Year. And I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And they asked a really pointed question. They said, well, with these new teams coming about, right? Portland coming, Toronto coming, and of course, the three, Cleveland, Detroit, Philadelphia. If Natalie Nicase wins, and I already have my answer, but I want to hear what you guys think. If Natalie Nicase wins Coach of the Year for, Sabreena, as you put it, the masterful job that she has done establishing a culture, establishing a winning culture as well, an identity, a tough opponent to match up with night in, night out. If the next team comes in and makes the playoffs, is that a new bar? Is that like the new standard that could warrant one of the new coaches from Portland or Toronto to get a Coach of the Year? Or was there more to it in what Natalie Nicase had to manage over the course of the season, that even if Portland or Toronto make the playoffs next year, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get Coach of the Year?
Well, I think Natalie did something that an expansion team has literally never done, right? An expansion team has never made the playoffs. And if Portland or Toronto does it, it will not have been the first time, because Golden State already did it. So that's part of it. I think it's also kind of a case-by-case situation. But I think, yeah, again, just the historic nature of what Golden State accomplished, being the first to do something is never going to be possible for another expansion team.
Ben?
Well, first of all, we can't have two coaches of the years, and so we would have to pick from Portland or Toronto there. I don't want to be the math guy here, but I'm
sure.
going to
I'm
that
just saying
idea.
If one or the other, right.
Yeah, but I also think, she definitely has set the bar high, and Golden State has definitely set the bar high. But I also think, we're not just now going to hand out Coach of the Year for an expansion franchise if you go 14-30 and have a competitive team. I think a lot of people, Golden State, she was in the conversation when they were still hovering around 500. I think for someone like me, what has been so striking is what Sabreena said, how many players are having career years and how comfortably they have now made the playoffs. They're not just backing into the postseason because they're under 500 and there were only 6 good teams in the league and someone had to claim those final 2 spots. They went out and got this playoff spot. They earned it. And I think that is really a credit to her and their staff.
I'm snapping, y'all. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm snapping. Boom, mic drop. All right, let's keep it rolling. Defensive Player of the Year. Ben, who's making a strong case for that?
Well, a lot of players are making a very strong case, but I'm going to go with Alana Smith of the Minnesota Lynx, who is often one of the most underrated players in the WNBA, I think has been for a few years now, and I'm very interested then to see how this voting shakes out. But she built very much so on a all-defensive second team year last season. That was a huge accomplishment for her, and she has been, in my mind, the most consistent, the best defensive player in the league this year. She's an even better shot blocker this year, averaging nearly 2 block shots per game. She's steady in pick and roll when she's guarding, both guards and big. She's a really, really good help side defender. She comes over and makes things really difficult, and that is one of the things that when you ask people around the league is a standout quality about how she is defensively. Minnesota has the league's best defense, and even with Napheesa Collier missing, almost a quarter of the season, during that stretch, even more was put on Alana Smith's season and on her shoulders rather, and we saw her, thrive, and Minnesota time and again has her match up with the best bigs or these bigs that, kind of can throw her around, and we see her fare incredibly well. So I think this is Alana Smith. I think A'ja Wilson's in this conversation. I think Fee is in this conversation. You want to go to a guard wing, someone like Gabby Williams from Seattle, I think very much deserves mention here. But to me, I'll go with Lan as of right now with a couple days left in the regular season.
I like this choice. I think a lot of people have been leaning on Lana Smith. She holds down the paint for the Lynx. She is the second layer of defense, the second line of help. She is someone that can also switch and have your back. If I'm a guard out on the perimeter, I feel good in a pick and roll situation with Lana Smith as my partner. Sabreena, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm sort of down to two players here. And a lot like MVP, it's a player on the Minnesota Lynx and A'ja Wilson. So, I look at what Atlanta Smith is doing, and, we try to look at all these stats when we're making these decisions. And it's the weirdest thing with Atlanta Smith. Like, the Minnesota defense actually gets better when she's off the court, which I don't really understand. I watched the game, and, she is clearly such an important part of what they are doing. Like, her rim protection, she's so physical. She just gets beat up all the time. Like, she puts her body on the line every single game, to the point where, you're constantly worried that she's not going to be able to get back up. But she's Aussie. That's what they do. So I think she's obviously an incredible part of what Minnesota's building as the league's best defense. A'ja, though, I know I mentioned that they have a lot of talent on the Aces. They don't have a lot of defensive talent on the Aces. What she has to do as that back line is so difficult. Her stocks numbers are just off the charts, right? The number of blocks and steals she's putting up. I mean, we're watching the game against the Chicago Sky last night, and she has 4 steals, 4 blocks and 3 steals in the first half. And it's just what are they even trying to go around her? What is happening? The defensive impact she makes in that respect. And you're looking at lineups where Chelsea Gray is the 4 for long stretches for Vegas, which is, again, putting a lot on A'ja Wilson's shoulders, and she's able to take care of that. I think the only reason I would lean towards Lane is just because Minnesota's defense, again, is so much better as a whole than Las Vegas's. But this is another one where it's kind of coming down to the wire for me, because individually A'ja Wilson is so phenomenal at protecting the rim, and that is, again, the most important area of real estate on the basketball court. So we'll see how that ends up shaking out. But I think both very good choices. I have a harder time just picking guards, just because of all of the difficulty associated with being a big in the WNBA and having to be the back line for everybody. But Ben has a lot of good choices. I think it's going to come down to Lana or A'ja Wilson, though.
Yeah, it's funny. We're having the same type of conversation of, is this person on the floor raise their defense, their team's defense, or versus the individual performance that this player is doing defensively? Man, I love Atlanta Smith. I do give her credit, but I was so stuck on this, I had to look at the numbers. And Napheesa Collier, I mean, her rebounding, her amount of defensive rebounds, the amount that she contributes in terms of defensive rebounds, percentage-wise, higher on the team than Atlanta. She's in above 1 steal a game, above 1 block a game, the lowest of the people we're talking about defensive rating overall. And I'm like, I don't know. You guys might know this. Has anyone ever won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah, A'ja Wilson.
That's right. Okay. That's what I thought it was. And I didn't want to be wrong here. But I feel like it's going to be A'ja or Fee. And someone's either going to double up or it's going to be split. But
I do wonder if a lot of voters are just going to think of splitting to give everybody some credit.
I know.
So it's honestly, in the back of my head, I'm like, how can A'ja Wilson have a season like this and not be recognized in some way or another? But, it's all part of the package.
Oof. Yeah. Agreed. Okay. Let's keep it moving. Most improved player, Sabreena. I'm going to start with my pick first, and I'm going to throw it to you. We're actually going to be talking to this person shortly in this show, and it's Veronica Burton. We've seen the statistics. We've seen that she is categorically better in, points per game. Her defensive numbers, her ability. I mean, she's been pretty consistent in the free throw capacity, but just her leadership overall and what she's contributing out on the floor, the numbers back it up, but also the feel test, the eye test back it up as well. When Kayla Thornton went down after All-Star break, Veronica Burton stepped up to the plate, and she started doing, she was doing what she was doing before Kayla went down, which is taking the ball into the paint, being able to shoot off the ball screens. She's been so much better at that this season, but particularly in the second half of the season when her usage rate went up and she had to have the ball in her hands a lot more. And so I am a huge, huge proponent of Veronica Burton for most improved, but there's also someone out east that I was like, I can't ignore this person. I want to see if you guys pick pick who I'm thinking about. So Sabreena, I'm gonna throw it to you.
Yeah, so you're saying out east, and I feel like I'm probably going to pick her teammate, honestly. I think Veronica Burton has the best case for this award, just going from fringe player who was unprotected in expansion draft, and she's, I think, making my second team all WNBA here, which is an enormous jump. I just did want to shout out Alicia Gray because I think she's made the jump from all-star to superstar, and that is the most impressive improvement to me. Like, she's gotten better at everything in her game, and it is so much harder to get better when you're already as good as she has been the last 3 seasons. So for her to just refine her shooting, get better at playmaking, she's a better defender, you know, she's more efficient, she's taking better shots on the court. Like, that to me is just so hard to make that specific jump. The thing is, like, Veronica Burton's also jumped to all WNBA, so it's hard to say that, like, it's not as impressive what Alicia Gray has done, but I think I just wanted to make sure that she got a mention because I do think this is Veronica Burton's award to lose, but I'm very impressed with the improvement that Gray has made in Atlanta.
I agree. And I also, I almost thought about Alicia Gray. Talking about her in the most improved might be almost like a demotion from MVP. But I agree that she needs to be spoken about in both of those categories. Ben, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think she certainly, Gray has a very good case for most improved, but I am like you, Zena, and going to go for Veronica Burton here. And I'm not one of these voters who just looks at a player who suddenly has more opportunity, and then as a result, their numbers go up as most improved. Like, I think it really is about how her game has developed. I mean, one piece of information that sticks out to me, and it's something that we see on the eye test too, is that she went from having no presence as an isolation scorer last year to now somewhat routinely being able to get downhill, stop and pop for a mid-range, or get all the way to the basket. Like, literally, if you look at, Synergy's data, she had 0 isolation baskets last season, and now she, she has a bunch. And she's shooting, not the best percentage. She's still shooting just 30% in those scenarios, but that is like a part of her game she has totally developed. She went from being a just over 30% spot-up shooter to now being a 40% spot-up shooter. And that doesn't even get into, her improvement as a pick-and-roll player or as a floor general. And she still remains a very good defender. So for me, it wasn't as simple as just look at her points, look at her rebounds, look at her assists. It's look at her game as a whole and what she is now doing. I mean, I think people around the league, look, this is a player who was waived out of Dallas. They cut her. And Connecticut wasn't exactly using her a lot, right? And so she goes to this new situation, and she has totally blossomed. Feeds back into the Natalie Nakase argument, too. But yeah, Veronica Burton, my pick for MIP.
Okay. You know what I was thinking? 6th player of the year. Not most improved. My 6th player of the year is out east. But there is one more Western player for most improved. Azrae Stevens. I feel like her contributions to LA, of course we knew Kelsey Plum coming in there would jump up the offense. Rakia Jackson coming back, she's been doing what she's supposed to be doing. And then Dearica Hamby has been phenomenal. But Azrae Stevens becoming a knockdown, stretch floor shooter, being able to get to the line, hitting her free throws. I've been giving her a little bit of love on this pod as an underrated player. And now I would say that she'd be a nice little addition to the most improved. And last but not least, 6th player of the year. I think we're all on the same page because I already teased that it's out east. It's out east. It's in Atlanta. It's in ATL. Mine, Naz Hillman. Guys, what do you guys think?
Yeah. A little love for Natisha Heidemann, but it's Naz. So good at being a 6th player that she graduated to a starter.
I know. Literally, right? Naz Hillman, bravo. Doing every single thing that Atlanta needs, especially a team that's already dripping in depth. She has been able to, mark her lane in terms of those deadly trail threes, but also, obviously, the defense, everything else that she provides as well. So we're on the same page there. Let's wrap this up and get into our conversation with Veronica. Don't go anywhere. Joining me now is Golden State Valkyries guard Veronica Burton. Veronica has been key to bringing the competitive mindset and defensive talent to the Valkyries. Veronica, welcome to No Offseason.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I cannot imagine how you're feeling right now. We're talking to you one night after you made history. Now, I know around the Valkyries org, you guys don't like to use expansion team. I get that. However, for the listeners, you guys are the first expansion team in league history to qualify for the playoffs in its inaugural season. huge congrats. I got to talk to you on the court as the energy in Valhalla was just consuming us both, consuming your entire team. Can you just take us through what that night was like for you? Not just like the win, but coming into the game, going in the game, and then that culmination. What was that like?
Yeah, it was definitely one, obviously we were aware of kind of what was at stake. It wasn't necessarily super talked about. As players, we know what's at stake. We knew if we won, we clinched the playoffs, and obviously how exciting that was. Our coaching staff just kind of reminded us that this is just any other game and to not really get too caught up in it. Coach Nat was even saying that this is the hardest game of the season just because we knew what it
Mm,
was about. And obviously Dallas, it's easy maybe looking at their record to, not take them as seriously as they should be taken because they are a very good team and a very competitive team. So I think from a mental approach, like it was something that we were aware of, something that we didn't want to get too caught up in, but also wanted it to motivate us and give us that energy. And so I think going into it, obviously we didn't have a great start. I think that we just came out a little flat, for a team that's fighting for a playoff spot. We didn't set the tone as a starting group, and we called a quick timeout, and that laid into us, rightfully so.
right?
And again, I just think throughout the first half, we weren't hitting shots that we usually hit, but we also were a pretty lackadaisical on the defensive end, communication. I think fatigue was a little bit of a factor, but that's where just relying on our whole team came in. Again,
Sure.
we got laid into at halftime, watched some film, got called out a little bit, and but I would say that second unit really is the unit that propelled us, really got us back into that game. Kate's hit some huge shots. Carla was incredible. Mo's energy. So really, just it was a whole team effort, and we were able to get it done.
Oh, okay. If you guys don't know, Natalie Nakase likes to say that she MFs people. You can guess what MF means. So every time you're saying we got laid into, I'm like, oh, I know she was MFing them. But what's impressive is that you responded. You responded every time. This was a game of runs. You go down 0-10 to start the game, and then you go on your own 17-6 run. And it was like that back and forth. This is what we've been saying about the WNBA all season long. You can't sleep on anybody at all, period.
Mhm.
There's just too much talent there. There's the particular contribution that you made towards the end. I mean, throughout the game, being the leader you've been throughout this season, you're one to put the team on your back, make a play, get into the paint, get a foul. That's what you do. But particularly at the end of the game, making free throws. You guys were up 2. You made a crucial 3-point play. You're going to the line, not even just in that play, but particularly as the seconds are getting counted down and Dallas is trying to stop the clock. They're putting you on the line. What was going through your mind in that moment to stay focused and hit
Yeah, it
those
was
shots?
just put them in. I've taken those shots so many times. I've practiced them
Mm.
in empty gyms. Everyone practices free throws. I definitely said a prayer before every single free throw that I took.
Yeah.
Just trying to stay focused, stay present. Again, we were in a good position, so I think that was helpful too. Just extend the lead. That's what I knew we needed to do. We didn't want to foul on the other end, so we weren't really being aggressive, and they were scoring pretty quickly. So just keeping it to a 2 possession game was the biggest thing that I wanted to do, and I was able to do that.
Well, shout out to those prayers. They looked out.
Right, always.
They always, right? And that's not just been, obviously in that moment, in that game, I'm sure you talk a little bit about your faith throughout your entire journey, right? And your basketball journey with your family. There is a wonderful article right now, guys, on The Athletic. Marcus Thompson wrote, covering you, your family, and just like the background of your experience getting to this moment. And I want to go back to the beginning of it all, at least with the Valkyries. This expansion draft process. I've heard you say in other interviews, you were in Australia and it was like 5
Mhm.
a.m. You got calls from your agent and you
Yeah.
were selected by the Valkyries from the Connecticut Sun, December 6th, 2024. What was your thought going into this new team, especially considering what you had been through leading up into that moment?
Mhm. Yeah, and honestly, you mentioned it, my faith. I do think this is where my faith came in, again. It's just, um, when I did get cut, I think being able to adapt and adjust to being on a brand new team, and obviously that was a little bit different. Like I came in late to Connecticut, but just I'm not someone that's super good with change, is super good with adjusting on the fly. And I think that was a moment that stretched me and challenged me. And so that was something that I really kind of had to get used to and adapt to. And so, again, just faith, just trusting that. I prayed a lot about it. I was able to have some awareness going into it, that I wasn't protected. So I definitely knew it was a possibility. But then to have that kind of be a reality and me have really no control over it, that's where I just trusted in God, trusted in his plan for me, and it was bigger than me.
Mm.
And so I was grateful too. What an amazing opportunity to be a part of something new, and a coach that hand selected me. So I was excited.
Yeah, that is really special. And I don't know what it is about us younger children. I am also the youngest in my family, and change feels a little
Right.
bit weird for us. I get that. I get that. But it is really dope that I never even thought about that. Being hand selected by a
Mhm.
team is really special. And then being hand selected to a program that wants to set a standard as an expansion team, as a new team in the league. From your experience with the Valkyries so far, like, what's been important for new teams? And the show is we recently was talking about how the Valkyries have been setting the blueprint really
Mhm.
for these expansion teams that are coming out. Like, what would you say is like the most important for new teams to have in order to set players up for success with these new
Yeah.
teams?
Yeah, I've talked a little bit about just from top to bottom, I think the investment that was put into us, as players, but also as staff, as the entire
Yeah.
organization. Like, they went all in for us, from ticket sales to marketing. Like, everything was taken care of and everything was just set us up for success. So, from that perspective, I think that was a huge thing. Like, we felt it. We felt like professionals from the moment we joined. And then from a player specific or coaching staff specific, I think the culture, like,
Yeah.
Coach Nat made it very clear from day one, like, she chose high IQ players and good character people. And that really did go a long way and it continues to. And just a lack of ego, I think, in the game of basketball can be huge. And we've relied on our chemistry and relied on everyone. And I just think that changes the game. When you have a team that everyone feels confident and everyone feels like they can hit that big shot or make that next play, like, it's a
Right.
game changer. And so I genuinely believe the culture is the biggest thing when it comes down to sports in general. And when you have a winning culture, it travels.
You know, it's so funny. I was talking to Kate Martin last night at the game, and I was teasing her because when we had preseason pressers with you guys, I had specifically asked, it was her tip, and I can't remember, there might have been a third person on the panel, but I was like, how are you guys going to build chemistry as a new team? And I remember their instinct was, We don't need to hang out all the time to be bestie, like to be good at what we do, right? We don't have to be, best friends in order to be good at our jobs." And I was like, "Hmm, okay." But I vividly remember, Ohema Nyan, your GM, talking about how good people you guys
Mhm.
are. Like, every single person they've selected has been really easy to work with, like has been really eager. And I was like, these girls about to be homies. And that's
Right.
exactly what's happened. Like, you talk
Yeah.
about the culture, you guys have really established a space that, that's not always the case for every
Mhm.
single WNBA team that you guys are as close as you are. So that is really, really special that you guys have that already established. I want to get into how maybe that culture, that investment, everything that you just laid out has helped you.
Mhm.
Because, like, let's just be real. And I love that, our girl, Ari Chambers, called us out in the off top interview. Like, you did put Northwestern on the map. We appreciate you
Right.
for that. Okay. But there's also been a new evolution to your game, right? As much as you were the defender, the person that you could put on a big time opponent in your roles in Dallas and Connecticut, now you're not just a defender, right? And you're not just a role player. You're a top scorer. I like to call you, in my own little words, backpack Burton. You've put the team on your back a few times. And
That's sweet.
so I do want to ask, like, this is a stark contrast from your previous experiences. When you joined the Valkyries, did you see yourself being able to evolve in that way? And I would imagine you're a competitor, so maybe the answer is yes, but I want to get your thoughts on
Yeah.
that.
It's definitely a two-way thing. Like, I knew I had put in the work. Like, I knew what I was capable of. I had people that were closest to me. Obviously, there's some bias there where the people closest to you are always gonna think you can do it
You're the
all.
best, right?
Yeah, literally. Um, but I knew the time, like, I'll be in the gym. Like, I knew the work that I put into it. I knew the style of play, and it would come out in bits and pieces, but there would always be, a piece of me, I feel like, not playing fully as me and not, the confidence was lacking and the comfortability and just I think that's where I took a leap this year too, is just I was able to play in Australia, and I really do believe that helped my game tremendously, physically and mentally. I have been working with a mental performance coach and just kind of getting that mental side of it down, and still a long way to go in terms of that. And then I really do think just the buy-in and the trust that my teammates and coaches have instilled in me. There's definitely been lapses this
Mm.
season, even the very first game. Like, I would say I started off that game just like I had started off other years, and I was really disappointed because I knew like this it was a fresh start. Like I wanted it to be different, and but Coach Nat pulled me in, and she knew I was disappointed, and she like it could have gone either way. I feel like I was expecting to not start the next game, and instead she
Mm.
pulled me in and was like, "You're fine, like, you're good, this like, we're rocking with you," and, she just instilled so much confidence in me, and, even in the very next game, like, it just felt like a completely different freedom, a completely different confidence, and I was really grateful for that because I didn't know what to expect, and in years prior, it had flipped, and, I think I talk about getting cut, and um, in Dallas or even in Connecticut not playing as much, and, like, rightfully so. I don't think I was
Mm.
playing in a way that, deserved playing time or deserved to be on that roster all the time. So, yeah, there were snippets, and yeah, there's a beauty in letting people grow in this league because you're not always gonna get it in the first couple years, but there comes down to some self accountability too, and I knew I needed to take a leap just to be in this league. I know what it's like to not be in it, so I couldn't afford to just come in timid again, and so I think that's where I took a big leap. And but I had so many people, teammates and coaching staff, in my corner helping me do so.
And there's even on your team, there are other players similar to you that may have been
Mhm,
out of the league or maybe were
mhm.
at the end of benches on other teams. And
Yeah, 100%.
the exciting part about your growth particularly is it's an example of all of this could change. And I want to
Yeah,
ask, like, you talk about Nakase feeding into you and supporting you in that. Um, how much do you think this evolution, or how would you balance? Because I think it's both, but
yeah,
how would you balance it being a function of opportunity? Like,
yeah,
this is just the space that I now have to ball out versus like you discernibly, like the things that you did in Australia to get
yeah,
better, the things
yeah.
that you did in the off season to get better.
It's definitely both,
Mhm.
threes, like, I needed to become a better shooter. I needed to change how people covered me in ball screens, and that was a big goal of mine, like, going over to
Mm.
Australia. There's incredible shooters over there, but, even talking to my coach Kennedy, who was my coach over there for Bendigo, before signing there, it was just like, "Look, I'm not just coming over to play, like, I need to grow, I need to get better, I need to become more of an offensive threat," and he saw that in me, and he watched so much film of me at Northwestern and knew what I was capable of and believed in me again, and that's what I need really, is a coach that believes in me but is willing to challenge me too. And
Mm.
so 100%, like, you can get an opportunity, but if you don't put in the work, like, it doesn't really matter, or it's just gonna repeat itself. So I was a firm believer that if the opportunity came, like, I wasn't gonna miss it, and I wasn't gonna let a lack of preparation be the factor that made me miss it. And so I definitely did everything in my power to grow in Australia, and it was great basketball, it was really physical. A lot of WNBA players are over there, and there's a lot of, like, translation in the 2, and so it was a perfect balance of playing 5-on-5 basketball, which I needed because I was getting limited minutes in the W, but also having the opportunity to continue to get like skill sessions in and get a
Mm.
lot of shots up, and especially off ball screens, and then put that into practice in game and build my confidence with that. And obviously winning a championship there just gives you more professional experience. And I think that carried over a lot. But again, opportunity is a big, like,
Yeah.
it goes a long way.
It's so funny because literally Chris Kaklana's head coach of the Dallas
Mhm.
Wings pre-game yesterday was asked what are, the three main keys. I guess he does this in every presser because
Mhm.
one of their reporters asked in the crew, and the first one was limit Burton off the ball screens.
Mhm.
Okay, you got
That's
a
funny.
rep now, okay? You got a reputation. And on that,
Sweet.
I wanna ask, like, did you ever think that you could be or would
Yeah.
be in those all W conversations this season?
Um, it's funny you ask that. Again, I feel like I'm picking both. Like, I knew deep down, I don't think I would ever admit that I thought that. Like, if you asked me this,
Mm.
especially my rookie year, last 2 years, honestly, like, I don't think I would have ever said that out loud, that I thought I could be in that conversation, that I thought I could even be in most improved. Like, that's a goal, obviously, and I think in my silent gym days or silent when I'm writing down, journaling my goals, like, that's a me, myself, and God type of conversation. But I think if I said it out loud, I didn't want people, like, it sounded almost
Mm.
foolish the way I was playing at the time. So, a little bit of both. Like, it's like I knew what I was capable of, but I wasn't showing it, so how can I even have that out there? But, um, again, I was gonna work like that was a possibility, like
Mm.
that's was gonna happen, and, um, that's what I did, and that's I'm still, like, really far, like, I have so much farther to go, like, I think it's easy to sit here right now after a great game and talk about how sweet it is, but there's so much more, um, and so much more work that I need to do and grow in, and so I think if you ask me, no, rookie year, like, I was looking up imposter syndrome. I didn't think I belonged in the league. I didn't even
Mm.
know, like, so I don't know. It's just
That's
it's
real.
definitely, yeah, godly work, godly opportunity, and I'm just going with it, honestly.
You were so how old are you, Veronica?
I just turned 25.
You're
25.
so deeply reflective and self-aware.
Thanks.
Like I don't like for you to be I mean, I almost want to warn you as a person that's older than you, like difference between being self-critical and
Yeah.
also,
Yeah,
but
seriously.
it's so impressive to hear you talk about your game and the growth and be
Mhm,
aware of like I could be better in X, Y, and Z. And I think it could directly contribute to
mhm,
why you've been so successful and have taken advantage of this opportunity. I do think it's a balance of both.
mhm.
So, even congrats to you on that for that growth.
Thank you.
Shoot, a lot of folks listening know a lot about imposter syndrome that ain't got
Mhm.
nothing to do with a basketball court. So I'm
Right,
sure that
right.
is really exciting for them to hear that you can outgrow it, you can grow through
Yeah.
it, and that's a good thing. Okay, I got to close it out with a few quick fun questions. We just talked a little bit about the most improved and all WNBA, etc. And I want to ask some awards that you would give out on your team. Okay,
Okay.
and you're
I
excluding
like
yourself.
this.
Okay, so during the season, looking at your team, who would you choose? And remember, you got to exclude yourself. But who would you choose as the MIP? Who would be the most improved player in your opinion on your team?
I would say I'm gonna go Janelle, our rookie.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that.
I think from, like, her growth, obviously skill-wise, she always had it. You saw it from the jump.
Yep.
But, like, her growth as a teammate, her growth as just, like, a listener and an energy giver and just, like, all of that. So, as a whole, I would put Ja for sure.
Yeah, her communication, like she's
Yeah,
just been so much
all of
more
that. Yeah,
communicative.
for
Now
sure.
we chose some mamas of the team. And I know Caitlin Chen, looked at you and Kate Martin as kind of like her mama.
Mhm.
There's some folks that automatically put Mo Billings in that
Yeah.
conversation. I'm going to go the opposite. Who's the little sister of the team?
I would say there's 2 of them,
Mm,
and it's gonna be Caitlin Chen, and it's gonna be Carla Liet, like,
yes.
easily. I think Carla is, like, the baby of the team. Everyone is protective of Carla,
Yeah.
and she is one of a kind. She's so sweet, so precious, so gotta be Carla.
Yeah. Every time Carla hits the floor, I'm like, oh,
I know.
I feel protective of Carla myself
Just
as well.
always
Yeah.
giggling, always you
Yes.
never know what's going on, but for
Yeah.
sure.
I love that. I love that. Okay. And then your team MVP for this season so far.
And team MVP, I don't think I can just pick one person for our team MVP. I gotta go all of us. Coach
Yeah,
Nat
I
for
figured you were gonna say
MVP.
that.
Yeah, there's
Yes,
no
okay.
one. That's the beauty of our team, honestly.
Yeah, I was like, I bet you she's gonna cheat this and say Coach
Yeah,
Nat or
I'm definitely
something
gonna cheat
like
that
that.
one.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Last question I have for you. You guys are going to the playoffs.
Mhm.
If you were to win a championship, would you be the most accomplished Burton in your family?
I like to think so. I mean, shoot, that's gotta help me out a little bit.
You got a
My
lineage.
grandfather, I know my grandfather Ron might be up there. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. Okay.
So it would put me like on his tier, I think. The rest of them, I'm not too worried about. Me and my mom, maybe. My mom, I still got to fight with a little bit. But the rest of them.
Yeah. Jenny's pretty impressive. I ain't gonna lie.
She is. She holds it down. She does.
There you go. Well, Veronica, I am so grateful for the conversation. I'm grateful to be able to walk through your journey through the league so far. It's been so much fun watching your team. I know y'all block out all the noise, but just know from your perspective, a lot of folks are talking and everyone's really excited about what you guys are doing out here in the Bay. So appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me and good luck the rest of the way.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much to Veronica Burton making the time to talk to me. She's the coolest. Now, guys, I know that there is an award campaign happening and teams are doing their due diligence to ensure that voters know who's up for the opportunity. So, Sabreena, talk me through how teams are trying to convince you to vote for their players.
Kudos to the Atlanta Dream and the Phoenix Mercury. I think they're the tops on my list. Atlanta sent out these goggles for Ali Chagre. You can see them on the YouTube.
Oh,
so everybody gets to have a pair.
it.
Phoenix Mercury also sent out this like little, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a 3D image thing where you can like look at all of the stats
It's like
of
a
their
flash.
players. It's really
Yes,
fun.
this is very 90s coded. Those
Yeah,
little,
very 90s coded. And
yeah.
Seattle, I just want to credit them. They gave out a bunch of these little crowns, which made me think it was the Seattle Rain, not the Seattle Storm, but I like the intra-city cross promotion.
Oh, I like it. Okay, Ben, what did you get on your end?
Yeah, I think the Washington Mystics have really leaned into a gardening theme. They have a lot of these quick mystics in bloom, flowers, seeds, gloves, the whole shebang that way.
They're growing something in this.
Yeah, they're growing something. They're
I
playing seeds.
see. I like it. Okay.
Queen Fee, a little like orb basketball from the Minnesota Lynx, I think has been
nice glass basketball
very nice
paperweight.
glass item.
Okay.
Underdogs has been the theme for the Connecticut Sun. They gave away like a t-shirt, some Sanaya Rivers dog bone cookie. And if I can go back to it, we haven't received, I guess, everything, we should say, by Monday. The Dallas Wings, I believe, gave out a Matchbox card and some other racing-related.
Well, Hot Wheels from Dallas Wings.
Hot Wheels, not Matchbox, Hot Wheels. And going back to Atlanta, we should give a shout-out. They also, for some, have a special bedazzled basketball that one of their front office staffers, I know, did by hand. So Sid from the Atlanta Dream, I believe, is the artist behind this for their awards campaigns. Atlanta really trying to make a sparkly splash of sorts.
And they are. That is gorgeous. Shout out to all the teams. Shout out to the efforts that everyone in the PR teams are making to ensure that their players are getting the love that they deserve. And for that is all we've got for you today. We'll be back on Friday with our playoff preview. So wherever you're listening, please follow our show. And if you're watching on YouTube, do your job. Subscribe, y'all. Make sure you tell your friends and your mama about us. I hear that moms love us. We're great. Okay.
They love your mom, Zena, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, yes, love it. My mom has apparently, there's been a lot of inquiries about my mom after the last show, me talking about my experiences with refs. But anyways, that means you have to go listen to that last show to understand what I'm talking about if you didn't already. But make sure you're giving us a rating, dropping a comment, making sure the universe can get this show to the right ears. That will help us. We want to hear from you guys as well. Head on over to our partner, the Yahoo Sports Hub, for more content, sports.yahoo.com/women's-sports. On behalf of The Athletic, Ben Pickman, Sabreena Merchant, that bedazzled ball from Atlanta, I'm Zena Keita, thanking you for listening, and we will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to No Offseason. To hear more, be sure to like and subscribe. We drop new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.